Welcome back, everybody. We're now talking about Stephen Hawking. He lived from 1942 to 2018, and as I stated before with the other two scientists, we're going to talk about their backgrounds first. So we're going to talk about his background, who he is, in case you don't know who he is, and we're going to compare his beliefs in the Bible or God or non-beliefs in those items with his science. Okay? All right, so let's get started right away here. And let's go to who he is. Since Hawking studied the physical interaction of heavenly bodies, he was, by definition, an astrophysicist. Relatedly, he was also a theoretical physicist. Real smart guy. Indeed, he was an English theoretical physicist whose theory of exploding black holes drew upon both relativity theory and quantum mechanics. Really sounds deep, right? He also worked with space-time singularities, according to Britannica. Hawking studied physics at University College, Oxford, that's right, and Trinity Hall, Cambridge. So he went both to Oxford and Cambridge. All right, now okay, we talked about his education. What about his honors? Hawking's contributions to physics earned him many exceptional honors. For example, in 1974, the Royal Society elected him one of its youngest fellows. He became professor of gravitational physics at Cambridge in 1977, and in 1979, he was appointed to Cambridge's Lucasian Professorship of Mathematics, a post once held by Isaac Newton himself. Well, speaking of Isaac Newton, let's take a look at this next slide in connection with what Hawking believed and what Newton believed. Is there a creator? Hawking says no. Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein say yes. Here we go. Britannica. Details of the structure of a black hole are calculated from Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity. So Hawking had to study both Newton and Einstein. Notice the second point there. Newsflash, both Newton and Einstein believed in a creator, as discussed in each tab bearing their names later in this section thread. Oh my, disappointment for Hawking. But let's hear what he has to say about God. Of course, we won't see the video, but we can listen to the audio. It's only about a couple of minutes. So here we go.
Now, Professor Hawking, in the very last paragraph of your book, you say that if we discover a complete theory of the universe, then it should in time be understandable in broad principle to everyone and not just to a few scientists. And when that happens, all of us will be able to start discussing the why rather than the how. And I quote, "If we find the answer to that, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we would know the mind of God." Do you think that God can intervene in the universe as he wants, or is God too bound by the laws of science?
The question of whether God is bound by the laws of science is a bit like the question, can God make a stone that is so heavy that he cannot lift it? I don't think it is very useful to speculate on what God might or might not be able to do. Rather, we should examine what he actually does with the universe we live in. All our observations suggest that it operates according to well-defined laws. These laws may have been ordained by God, but it seems that he does not intervene in the universe to break the laws, at least, not once he had set the universe going.
Wow, that's interesting for someone who is an avowed atheist to talk about God. To talk about God as a lawmaker because, yes, we have laws in the universe. We have the law of gravity. We have the law of magnetism. and so many other laws. So it's kind of interesting that he would talk about God that way. Well, let's go to our next slide. Regarding atheism, Hawking said this: one can't prove that God doesn't exist. Let's read the slide. Even though the exceptional Hawking was an avowed atheist, he said the following in an ABC News interview: one can't prove that God doesn't exist, but science makes God unnecessary. The laws of physics can explain the universe without the need for a creator. That's interesting, right? The laws of physics. Every law I've ever heard of had a lawmaker. So there's a problem. That's problematic right away. Let's go to the next slide now. Okay, it gets more interesting here. In another interview, Hawking said, before we understand science, it is natural to believe that God created the universe. Duh. Okay. But now science offers a more convincing explanation. Does it really? What I meant by we would know the mind of God, remember he said that earlier, is we would know everything that God would know if there were a God, which there isn't. I'm an atheist. Wow, man, these sounds like Jastrow. I'm an agnostic, so that means God doesn't exist. He's saying I'm an atheist, so that means forget all these laws, God doesn't exist because I'm an atheist. Hey, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. But let's move on. Well, where did the universe come from? Stephen Hawking, a close colleague of Neil deGrasse Tyson, right, answers, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Please ponder that. I'm going to say it again. The universe can and will create itself from nothing. There's nothing in science to prove that. As it turns out, that's not the only thing he was wrong about. Third bullet point. The scientific journal Nature Astronomy and the website Live Science revealed or carried this headline: one of Stephen Hawking's theories about black holes may have just been proven wrong. So it's not the only thing he's wrong about. It's rather fascinating. Let's go back to that. The universe can and will create itself from nothing. Highly educated. All right, let's go to the next slide. All works of nature created by God in heaven and on earth are works of sculpture. This is what the very famous Benvenuto Cellini said. In fact, he's a famous Italian sculptor and goldsmith and author, and, according to Britannica, one of the most picturesque figures of the Renaissance, this enlightened period. He's more enlightened than some of these scientists that we are considering here, right? Regrettably, asserting that the universe can and will create itself from nothing is classic atheistastroagnosis. How so? Well, if the universe created itself, then the universe is the creator, which Hawking says he doesn't believe in. It's mind-boggling, as I stated before. Difficult to wrap your mind around this, right? Wrap your head around this. Please avoid atheistastroagnosis at all costs. And those scientists who believe like Hawking, make an appointment to visit an astrophysical psychologist. I'll be happy to help you out as best I can. Next up, Carl Sagan. Ooh. Until then, class dismissed.